have an amazing panel of speakers.
There is this debate about the deconstruction of the American capitalistic system versus how do we position ourselves to accelerate, thrive, and take advantage of it.
We have to control pools of capital, opening up the access doors so that people can pursue the opportunities that they want to pursue.
20 years ago, the mindset was, if you build it, they will come. Now, we have to meet people where they are.
At the end of the day, what makes the company successful and grow is the people. And if you don't have good people and you're not nurturing people, training people, you're not going to be successful.
We need salespeople, accountants, creators, people who come up with something that we've never had before.
We've seen the roadmap. Now the opportunity is, how do we do more of that? How do we expand that quick, fast, across the country?
Hello, I'm Kim Greenidge, and welcome to the Big Dipper Innovation Summit, the next frontier. The Big Dipper Innovation Summit, established in 2023 by JMI and hosted by Virginia State University, is a live forum for entrepreneurs, big thinkers and big dreamers, makers and creators to come together and talk innovation, new ideas, and imagining what's next for their businesses and our community at large. And now we're bringing that live event directly to you. It's more than just the latest corporate buzzword. When you hear the phrase environmental, social, and governance, what comes to mind? In this episode, industry leaders go deep into how their lived experiences have played into their experiences in corporate America. Dominion Energy's Carlos Brown, professor and activist Dr. Wes Bellamy, and Bank of America's Victor Branch sit down with labor and employment attorney Jimmy Robinson Jr. to discuss what's entailed in living up to ESG goals. Stay tuned for their very impactful discussion.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to have everybody back in the room. We have two more sessions, and this next one is going to be so insightful. It's a topic we don't often get to talk about, but I guarantee you we experience what this topic is all about. This is called environmental, social, and governance, also known as ESG, and it's really about building a new table. ESG goals are often very lofty. They can easily become a series of buzzwords, corporate speak, and empty promises. How are today's ESG leaders prioritizing what they can do to ensure that ESG commitments, especially around sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and governance, have sustained and measurable impacts? Once again, we've got a phenomenal panel of speakers to educate us on this topic. Moderated by Jimmy Robinson of Ogletree and Deakins, with Carlos Brown from Dominion Energy, Victor Branch from Bank of America, and Dr. Wes Bellamy from Virginia State University. Give it up. Come on up, gentlemen.
Got some esteemed guests here to entertain you guys, but we got a serious topic. But before we get started, I'm gonna introduce myself, and then I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, and then we can get started a little bit. I'm Jimmy Robinson. I'm the managing shareholder of the Richmond office of Ogletree Deakins. We are a full-service labor and employment firm, so I get to do the fun stuff every day. Salacious, exciting, just crazy stuff dealing with your workforce. So it keeps me excited and happy every morning when I get up. My wife, not so much. But we do tend to get into some of these serious topics of how can we transform some of these organizations, these corporations, to make sure that we are at the table, that our voices are being heard, that our ideas are spotlighted. And so I'm at that table advising my clients who are interested in taking that amazing step, sometimes challenging, right? Because we get stopped and challenged all the time, how to do that. And so I want to engage these gentlemen to help us tell us how they've done it. Why don't we start with on my left, and well, let's start with Carlos.
Good afternoon. Carlos Brown, Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Chief Legal Officer at Dominion Energy. We're one of the largest energy companies, combined utility energy companies in the country, based right here down the street in Richmond, Virginia, but we have operations in 15 states. We are actually the third largest solar operator in the country, and at one point previously used to manage one of the largest gas transmission pipelines going to the Northeast, providing most of the energy to New England. We still are one of the largest energy providers in New England with our Millstone nuclear power plant. And we can talk about that going a little bit further when we talk about kind of the energy transition. But thrilled to be here.
Thanks, Carlos. Next, we have Victor Branch. Why don't you introduce yourself, Victor?
Thank you, Jimmy. While I'm back, I had the opportunity to sit in Jimmy's chair earlier, and now I can sit back and opine about myself. I am a native son of this region. I think I told the audience this morning I'm from D.C., and that would be Dinwiddie County, or deep country. Pick your acronym. So I grew up here right here in the backyard of Virginia State University, and went to the little junior college across town because all my friends that I played around with in high school smartly came to Virginia State, and I said, well, I didn't do well in high school. I better go a different route. And so I did go to Richard Bland and matriculated to William & Mary, and came out of William & Mary in 1984 and landed a job with a little bank that had started up or merged in Virginia called Sovereign Bank, if anybody remember that name. And I said I'd be there 5 years maybe, and go on and do something else, because I didn't know what bankers did, and man, I learned a lot. And here, Carlos, and I'm starting my 39th year with the bank. And all that time right here at home in this region, didn't have to move around God's green earth to move up in the company. And each merger and acquisition that I got to experience, I fortunately got to grow with that company, and it became a better, more passionate and caring company each time. And I'm so proud to be working for Bank of America, the largest bank in the country, and fortunately the largest bank in the Richmond region, and one that really cares and gives back. And so I get to serve as the first president of this skin tone for Bank of America in the capital of the Confederacy.
All right.
So,
all right.
Thank you. And I don't take it for granted. And to your point, Jimmy, to be at the table, to be able to help drive some of the bank's initiatives, and we'll obviously talk about that a little bit in a minute, but I'm really blessed to be a first-generation college student, come from parents who did not finish high school, and sit here today and share some of my experience, and then more importantly, what the company I work for represents. I'm really proud to be a part of this discussion.
All right. Thanks, Victor. We appreciate it. And next, we have Wes Bellamy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wes Bellamy. I'm the Political Science Department Chair here at Virginia State University, the Virginia State University. We're elated to have you all. Wait, you all should clap when we said the Virginia State University.
There you go. Board member, I will.
Yeah, we got some manners in here, right? But more importantly than being defined by titles, I'm the former vice mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, and do some other things. I think how I like to define myself the most is that I care deeply about my people. I try to be very intentional about my love for my people, be very intentional and unapologetic about the support for my people. And I believe that we all owe a debt and a gratitude, not only to the ancestors and those who've come before us, but specifically to a lot of the black women who've paved the way for us. Two of my sisters are in the back, women who I couldn't do anything without here at Virginia State, Miss Aisha Singfield, Miss Latoya Waddy. They run me here. My other sister over there, Shamika Bowen of the Urban League, and many other hats. So I owe a great deal of gratitude and debt to the sisters, who I think we all do. And I would love for us to just think of ourselves in that regard. Like, how would you describe yourself if no one could say your title? Who would you say that you are if you just had to look in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth and you only can speak about the attributes and your contributions to our people.
That's right.
If we could think of ourselves in that regard, my belief is that it can elevate us and push us in a different way to not only care more about each other, but put on for each other in a way that allows us to be able to move in a different direction. So thank y'all for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
These guys about to drop knowledge today, guys. They about to drop some knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate that. Well, let me get started with a question. When Ken asked me to moderate this panel, I don't know if he really appreciated how perfectly I was positioned to do this. Not necessarily several years ago, but certainly today. So Carlos, earlier, in 2022, I did something that I would normally do, but it was a little maybe uncharacteristic of me in the way in which I did it. I'm at a firm of 1,000 lawyers, 300 partners, 8 of us are equity partners that are Black. And we have special committees at these big firms, right? You have these committees. One of the most important committee is the comp committee. The compensation committee.
Oh, compensation. I thought you said the COP committee.
No, the comp
We about to have a different conversation.
Right.
But go ahead, brother, my fault.
So I rallied and advocated for one of my peers to be on the comp committee. And the decision came out that they were going to let someone else be on that committee. So I sent an email, Carlos. And that email said, we have 1,000 lawyers at this firm. There's not a single Black person on any major committee at this firm. Not a single Black person. Now, notwithstanding my love for white people, because y'all making me money, why can't we be at this table? I own part of this firm. Why can't we be at this table? I alienated a ton of people, came up really bruised in the process, was gonna pick my office up and go somewhere else. I can take my toys wherever I wanna take it, it's my business. Why did I have to do that, Carlos? Why do I have to advocate so hard in 2022, 2023 to get firm governance in a space where we're not tapping white people on the back to take the next position? But we're looking at the qualification of these amazingly brilliant Black people who think outside the box, who bring so much to the table. Why am I having to do this?
So this harkens back to those of you who were here yesterday, and I think there was a question that was given to Bakari Sellers about whether we've made progress. And the answer is we have, right? You know, the fact that, Jimmy, you're a partner at your law firm, the fact that Victor is a president, the fact that I'm the chief legal officer at a major Fortune 500 company means we've made progress. The challenge is that some of us, and I would say that there's an argument to be made that some that were in the generation prior to us, once we got there, we were so concerned about being there that we didn't have that voice. And I believe that if we're going to continue to make progress, those of us that are there have to have a voice. Someone once told me, if you're going to be there, be in the room, don't just take up space. Say something. There's no reason for African Americans to be in leadership positions in government, in business, in NGOs, and in other areas of media if we're not going to do anything different. So it's incumbent to do that. Now, we would like the world to simply act right. But Frederick Douglass told us years ago, right? Power concedes nothing without demand.
Right.
So we have to make demand. But what's different now is that some of us are in the position where we can make demand or where we can make the decision. And so as we talk about ESG and what that is, and really the ESG packaging is something that's fairly new, right? In the last 4 or 5 years, people have started talking about environmental, social governance. Generally, it was initiated about environmental stuff, but really, I think the community has taken hold of that and said, no, we get the environment, that's important, but people got to eat today, right? People need to have clean air today. People need to have opportunities for advancement and wealth building today. People's communities need to be cleaned up today. Corporations need to be accountable with regard to and socially responsible today. There are people that want to start businesses today, and we can't just talk about what's going to happen 50, 75, 100 years from now. What are we doing today? And so that whole conversation around environmental social governance really is about how do you do well while doing good?
Right.
And I think that one of the things that's happened, especially since 2020, and Mr. George Floyd's death and the activism that occurred from that, is that we, as a community, begin to have voice and to begin to say, you know what, I'm notwithstanding the consequences, we're going to have voice. And we're going to challenge the institutions to live up to their obligations to not just do well from a profit perspective, but to do good. And how do we hold them accountable? So I hear you that you shouldn't have to do it, but we've always had to do it, and we're going to have to continue to do it.
Well, that's great. I love it, Wes. But I got 2 kids in college, both of them in private HBCUs. That costs too much. Hampton, my beloved Hampton, and it's just expensive. I got a niece who just graduated from the Virginia State University. I had to pay for that.
The most affordable HBCU in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The most affordable institution in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I got a nephew that flunked out of Tuskegee and the Virginia State, and now we're back at Alabama State. So I'm paying a lot, right? I got a lot to lose, is my point. I am that person. Jimmy wants to speak out. He wants to be that person that Carlos says. He wants to take up the room, but he got people who depend on him, who just a week away from food stamps. So he got to send money to pay that light bill. He comes from that background where everybody doesn't have that silver spoon, but he's still buying shoes for a cousin's kid. How can he speak out in these spaces when it's very, very tenuous, his tenure there?
I think there's a couple of ways in which we have to view this. The first perspective, this is just my personal estimation and personal opinion. The first perspective in which I think we all need to guide ourselves is by our moral compass. So while individuals may have persons who depend on them, you always have God who empowers you. So if you have God and you're guided by a God who empowers you, then from my just personal belief, then there's not going to be any person on this planet whom I'm going to fear. And because I'm not going to fear any person in any situation, in any shape, form, or fashion, at any time, I'm going to speak how I need to speak, when I need to speak, when God tells me to speak. But understanding when and how to speak and to effectively communicate is something in which I think is a skill that we have to develop. That's something that we speak with our students about at great length. Our former moderator, our past moderator, Ms. Yanai Campbell, the president of the SGA here at Virginia State, we have a lot of conversations about that, knowing when to say certain things and when to speak up, because it's a learned skill. That's the first part. I don't want to belabor or take up too much space, so forgive me, brother.
Take your time.
The second thing that I think we all need to understand is also, what is our role in the quote-unquote movement? Because being out front and being the individual that quote-unquote speaks up all of the time may not be for everyone. You need to understand very clearly what comes with what happens when you use your voice in certain ways. God has equipped me literally since I believe I was like 4 or 5 years old to harness my voice and use it and be prepared to deal with whatever perceived consequences may come with speaking up and taking certain positions. I'm not afraid to do so. But understand that while we need persons who are going to be willing to do those things, we also need people in the background who are going to be able to bail us out. We need persons who are going to be able to provide support for our families if we do, in fact, lose our job, which I've had to have persons do. We do need persons who are going to be able to research and provide us with the pertinent information so as to send the eloquent email to show tangibly this is why we are speaking about A, B, and C. And that goes all to show that we work together in unison, which leads me to the last point. This table, this proverbial table that we're talking about, how beautiful would it be if we dared to believe that we can build this table amongst ourselves? If we dared, like literally just dared to believe that we collectively amongst ourselves had everything that we needed to elevate our people. If we believed that we have the banking acumen, if we believed that we had the legal acumen, if we believed that we had the educational acumen, and we had the experience to be able to impart this information onto our people, how many more of us could be inspired and empowered? Now, I understand that's not a philosophy and a dream that everybody can attain. Some of us still believe that white ice is colder than black ice. Some of us still believe that we need to be in certain institutions, and I have no issues with anybody working in certain places that's going to elevate us, because in fact, we do need voices. But I just dare us to think before we die, what would happen if instead of us seeking space at their table, we just decided to build our own, develop our own, cultivate our own, invite our own to our table? That's kind of my dream.
Wes, I love that. It reminds me of when I was like 6 years old, riding in my grandmother's car, who was a terrible driver.
Damn, Granny.
But she would say, I grew up in the country, I'm from Talladega, Alabama, and she'd say, Jimmy Frank, you see all those cows out there? Yes, ma'am, I see them, Big Mama. She said, there are some people in this world who don't believe that that black cow is gonna deliver white milk. Mm-hmm. You should always know what's being delivered is as good as what comes out of that white cow.
There you go.
But I'm challenged, so I need your help with this, Victor.
Okay.
When I was at Hampton as a freshman, we stood around Ogden Circle. There were barrels of things in front of us, and we walked up to those barrels. And President Harvey at the time, because you know he stayed there forever, I love my HBCU.
Virginia State graduate.
Definitely a Virginia, well, he went to Talladega College first, because I'm from Talladega, but you know. Anyway, he had these barrels, Victor, in front of Ogden Circle. We didn't know what was in the barrels, but when we walked up in them, what did we see? Crabs. And the crabs were all trying to do what? Escape. But they couldn't escape because as soon as one got up, what happened? The other one pulled them down. And he said, it was our humanities class, all of us out there, he said, what will happen in that barrel will never happen if one of you, a Hamptonian, you will never be that crab in the barrel. You will never pull any of your colleagues, your friends, you will not pull them down. So Victor, what happens when we're trying this, ESG movement and our community members see us, think we're not doing anything, as Wes indicated. We're moving so much behind the scenes. Carlos, you know how to do that. Mm-hmm. But they're like, Uncle Tom this, you ain't doing what you're supposed to do. You just don't know, right. Uneducated, not willing to come on board with us, not willing to give us a chance. How do you manage that concept when the community doesn't appreciate that it takes so much more behind the scenes to get steps in front of the scene?
Jimmy, why do you ask such tough questions?
This is what ESG is, right? It's complex.
It is very complex. I love the visual of the crabs in the barrel that Dr. Harvey taught you. It stuck with you, didn't it?
It's amazing.
And it was something that you will always remember. It's a commitment to telling the story, but showing up in the communities and doing the work and building the trust. And it's not transactional. it's about relationship building. It's about being there in the tough times and helping the community see that you are a trusted partner. And everything that Carlos has said and Wes has said, I so emphatically agree with. And I indicated that I am, by the way, I left out in my bio the fact that I was on the board of William & Mary up until June of this past year and asked for reappointment for a second term, new administration, and got appointed to the Virginia State University Board.
Right.
So I am proud that I can bring that William & Mary Board experience to this fine institution, my hometown institution. I'm sorry about that, man. Yes. And I questioned it for a minute, and then I said, well, God, He orders our steps, right? And so He knows where I'm needed.
Right.
And what resources and experience I can bring to this amazing institution and where it is headed. And my point is, I am so proud that I work for a company that wants me to be present, building those relationships and the blocking and the tackling and just being there, showing up. And the timing of this discussion and when JMI asked me to serve on this panel, this week I was like, wow, it's like it's all the stars and the moon aligned because I had to bring the notes. Bank of America was just named on Tuesday the #1 America's most just company.
All right.
The most just company of 900 companies that were analyzed. This is not just financial institutions. This is the 900 top companies in this country that were analyzed for this. We are the first financial institution to be given this recognition. And some of the key metrics are a leader in being a great place to work, particularly our commitment to a $25 minimum wage, which we are well on track to for 2025. Everyone who works at Bank of America will make a $25 minimum wage, and all of our vendors and contractors must pay anyone that works for them that amount. That we are a leader in sustainable financing, and I love this one, and I hope this audience does, because of how we have worked to eliminate barriers for hiring, and we prioritize board diversity and independence. We became the #1 most just company named by this organization and CNBC. And we've been at this for a while. And ESG is not something on the side of our desk. It is core to who we are. And we really stepped it up after the tragic killing of George Floyd in 2020 with our $1.25 billion commitment to advancing racial equality. And we've been a philanthropic company just like our colleagues at Dominion. And what we got from that in 2020 was to be much more strategic in how we show up in our giving and in our investing. And out of that was one of the things that we have done is put money into equity investments and into minority institutions, banking institutions, to prop them up, to make them stronger and be more impactful in the communities in which they serve. And on the equity investment side, putting money into companies to help minority-owned businesses go to scale. If you have a catering business and you need a commercial kitchen, we want to put money into these equity investments to then give you the investment to take your business to scale. And we have many examples across the country over the last 2 years of where this is really helping our communities go to that next level and become the sustainable, independent, wealthy individuals that we all aspire to become. And so it's not doing the same old thing, expecting different outcomes. It's being creative, innovative, and working with partners to make a difference. And we're leading the way across the country in those types of investments. And in the Richmond region, I am proud that I get to work with a group of teammates, and my employee resource group has been with us the last 2 days at this summit, and they're sitting in the back there, the Black professional group, and we show up every day with them to allow them to be their best selves at Bank of America and grow and bring in more talent. And I'll close my remarks with this, Jimmy. Financial institutions have been standing in the way, standing in the door too long. And now we recognize we have to be a part of the solution for a better society that we all want to see. And to Carlos's point, it's not just the right thing to do. It's doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. So we want the talent, and we want the clients, and we want our talent to reflect our client base, and we want to be the leading financial institution that looks like the communities that we serve and support.
In our second half, we're going to get deep. You won't want to miss the rest of this important conversation.
So Carlos, you know firsthand what priorities are in place at corporate America to try to channel maybe this DEI movement, this ERG movement, this social action movement, this ESG movement. The best practices there are there, but how do we deliver to everyday employees actions and deliverables that make them feel as if we understand that equality and equity are different things?
I'll tell you exactly how I think about it, and I'm a little bit more curt than some. Don't talk about it, be about it, right? I mean, at Dominion Energy, 20% of our executives are African American. In my law department at Dominion, 20% of my attorneys, I have 60 attorneys, are African American women. I made a commitment, a public commitment, it's on the website, that 50% of the individuals on my succession plan, and on the succession plans for the people that report to me, will be diverse, meaning people of color and women. And I'm saying this publicly, and it's published on the internet and all over the place. Meaning, when you're bold enough, and now let me back up. The company has made a commitment that we would increase our corporate diversity from 32% in 2020 to 40% by 2025. And part of what happened over the last 5 to 7 years is I think those of us that had an opportunity, that were at the table, begin to use our voice and our strategic minds to say, look, there is accountability in the marketplace for this issue. Our customers, our policymakers, they care about this issue. We have been talking about it, and notwithstanding your well-meaning and your good intentions, we can't be the people out front defending our lack of progress. And fortunately, we've had leaders at our company who grabbed onto that. 7 years ago, we had one African American executive. I just told you that today out of an executive group of 60, we're now 20%. One of those African Americans is the president of Dominion Energy Virginia, which represents about 60% of our business. We are a Fortune 250 company with revenues of about $14 billion. Virginia Power, or Dominion Energy Virginia, is about $8 billion of that. That's run by a black man. That was not the case 7 years ago, but it required engagement, right? You don't make progress on these things because, an angel comes down and, or you have the Christmas story where an angel comes to Scrooge and says, hey, let me take you through your life and this is what you should be doing different. You make progress on these things because pressure is applied. But here's what I tell folks all the time. It is chess, not checkers. Right?
I like chess, though.
I can wear this sweater today on this stage because when I was 25 years old, I was wearing a navy blue suit with a navy blue tie and a white shirt with a collar on it.
Exactly.
And it's from the inside that we have, to your point about our colleagues, our employees, how do we allow them to come to work, represent their whole selves? It's that those of us who, and again, you went to Hampton, President Harvey had an accountability. This is what you have to do to navigate today, knowing that there is somewhere else we want to be later. And what you have to take with you on your journey is that where we should be as a society is not where we are today. So you get in that room and you figure out where the influences are. You set the table, you influence, and then at some point you own the table. So I want to go back to Wes's comment about the table because I think it's important that as we talk about Pan-Africanism and our African American motivation to self-develop and self-support, there are two things that we have to appreciate. Is one, that's always important at the genesis. But we have to understand markets. And the market is that there are a whole lot of other people. There are white people, Asian people, Jewish people, whatever. There are businesses and markets and customers and consumers all over the place. And the challenge with doing it all insularly is that I don't get any of their money. I don't have an opportunity to sell to those markets. So when I think about the table, I've always had the belief that every table that I sit at, I can own one day. So it doesn't have to be my table, but at some point I can own that table. And then I can leverage that table to be more equitable, to be more inviting, to be more supportive, and to create the society that our ancestors dreamed of. So when I think about the roles that we play and the positions that we're in, it is always to expand the seats at the table, to make sure that all voices are there so that there is no limit, there is no ceiling. Last one I'll make. I was reading recently about the strategy that was used by Charles Hamilton Houston, Thurgood Marshall, Oliver Hill, in the desegregation effort. And here's the point that many people don't understand about that. Their thesis in that case legally, they did not challenge separate but equal. They actually argued that this is the law. Separate but equal is the law. You have to honor that, recognizing that the institutions of government around this country would not be able to do that. So the way they defeated that law was by holding the institutions accountable to that law. And then ultimately, it was determined that it was an impossibility. I can't treat people of different colors or different genders or different orientations equally and separately. That means we got to all be together.
Right.
So they used the rule that was made, the noose that was made to put around our neck. They used the guillotine that was supposed to limit us to ultimately break open the doors of opportunity.
That's amazing, Carlos. One of the things Carlos said, Wes, was that we're playing chess, not checkers. I like checkers. It's easy. It's not, you can have a good time all day, every day. Everybody knows how to play it. You ain't gonna hurt feelings when you knock over their king. I mean, the chess is so complicated. My son had to go through chess class in 7th, 8th grade. He still can't play very well. How do we get our community members and empower our employees to see that we need to be playing chess.
I don't believe that, though.
Well, so tell me what you think.
Chess doesn't equate for race. Chess isn't real life.
Drop it all. Keep going. Tell them.
There's two examples in which, with respect, that both of you have used that I just disagree with. The first one I speak to an earlier comment in which you made with respect to our dear president, Mr. Harvey, Dr. Harvey. When you speak about a barrel and you speak about crabs, oftentimes, not all times, because like I speak to my students, we don't speak in generalizations. So we don't know every crab and we don't know every barrel. But oftentimes when individuals use that example, we describe the crabs as black. We say that the barrel is simply the barrel. But in fact, we need to understand that crabs live in an ocean, not barrels. The barrel is white supremacy. In fact, individuals have had some cruel thought to take crabs out of their natural habitat and place them in a barrel, pour hot steaming water over them, and then think that the crabs are crazy because they want to get out of something that's not their natural element? How damn stupid does that sound? We do this, some of us do this often. We believe, some of us believe that these cultural norms, that candidly, white people and these Eurocentric models and ways of doing things are the natural models in which we do things. That's just not true. Africans, historically, if you look as far back to Mesopotamia, have never shared the exact same practices of those who were in Europe. So why would we expect people who genetically and culturally are vehemently different to act to the same standards and norms of persons? If you want to get technical about it, we in fact had to teach to not urinate and do other things on themselves. The first civilization, Mesopotamia, black folk. But now for some reason, well, we know the reason, it's white supremacy, we believe that the structure that these other persons have created is what we, if you want to describe us as crabs, have to navigate through. And because, again, we fight for survival, we're wrong for doing so? It's a horrible example that I hear far too often used. Second thing I'll say, if you can, please put your phones down. When you use this example of chess and not checkers, I want to be very clear. Chess is a game of strategy, yes. But unlike life, the chess pieces, they all start with the same value. Your king counts the same amount as my king. Your bishop counts the same amount as my bishop. Your knight counts the same amount as my knight. In no place in modern America in which we can see, even if persons are born into higher socioeconomic statuses, if they are black, we have seen through the criminal justice system, we have seen through banking institutions, we've seen through affordable housing and housing structures, we've seen in educational systems. The level of the playing field is not the same. So when we use this analogy that individuals are playing chess, how can you equate something in which just because you use strategy to a fact of a game of life in which none of us are going to be viewed as the same persons?
So how do we operate?
Thank you for asking that question. With the firm belief that regardless of whatever barriers are placed before us, this is just my personal belief, I firmly believe that we will be able to overcome it. But one thing that I have learned, if I've learned nothing else here at Virginia State University, is the power of patience and grace with each other. My Dean Isis Walton, I don't think she's here. There she is, the littest dean at our institution. My dean has taught me for 4 years the power of being patient and gracious with each other. Patience means that I don't have a problem with holding you accountable, but I can hold you accountable in love. That love can be tough, that love can be strict, but the love is going to be there nonetheless. Patience also means that just because you don't do something right, and I understand that you don't have the tools to do it right, doesn't mean that I'm going to throw you off the quote unquote proverbial boat. to use the governor's language from this morning. Just because an individual may do something different, just because an individual may operate in a different way, doesn't mean that we don't have an obligation, again, to be patient with them and be willing to sacrifice our time to get them to where they need to be. If I haven't learned, again, anything else, I've learned that from her. I'll close with this. When you ask the question of how else do we get there? If every person in this room had to ask themselves, what are you willing to sacrifice for our people? Do you believe that you're sacrificing enough? It's a rhetorical question. It's not one that I want you to answer right now. In fact, I hope you don't even answer it tonight before you go to bed. I hope you ponder on it. I hope you really, sincerely think about it. What are we willing to sacrifice for us to get to where we need to be? Is that sacrifice spending time with that young lady who may be 23 years old, who may have 4 children, who may think that even in the winter it's a hot girl summer and she uses choice words? Are we willing to be patient enough with her to get her to where she needs to be in order for her to be deemed quote unquote successful? Are we willing to be patient and compassionate enough with that young man who may have hair that does not fall in line with the guidelines of Dr. Harvey, who said that persons at his business school will not have locks, although that's a cultural thing in which we've come over with, because I understand he believes that we need to play the game. But are we willing to be patient with that person who may dress differently? I dress different. Who may have a different hairstyle? I got a design of African parts in the side of my hair. But that young man who may have a lot of very rough edges, who may use a lot of crazy language, who may not be where we need him to be right now, but with some tutoring, with some love, with some compassion, with some patience, can be the vice mayor of a city, can be the lieutenant governor of a state, who could be a senator in the United States of America. Are we willing to be that compassionate and patient with ourselves to understand culturally who we are, not who white supremacist natures have told us who we should be, but understand who we are to get us to where we need to be? I said I'll close. I do got one more thing. You should have gave me the mic.
All right, go ahead.
Should have gave me the mic. I said I'll close, but I'll end with this, right? Seriously. On that journey of trying to help that person get to where they need to be, how many of us know who we are culturally? Like, do you know who you are? I'm not talking about where you came from. I'm not talking about like any of that. I'm talking about, do you know and understand who you are? And if you understood who you were and you understood the sacrifices of those before, I would hope that we would also get that the dreams of our ancestors, we've already surpassed. We're building new dreams. But are you comfortable enough with yourself and dare to dream of something new? Not just for yourself, but for those who are coming behind you. A land in which where we don't have to think about us being crabs in a barrel. A land in which where those crabs are back in the ocean, swimming and living freely and building their own ecosystem to not only supply and feed themselves, but also feed others. That's the dream of which I'm hoping that we're willing to get to. But we don't get there with these old adages and these really self-dehabilitation words that have been passed down from the elders to the people of now. Because the kids today, excuse my language, they don't want to hear that shit.
Well,
I'll stop with that.
Very good point, Wes. And Victor, I need your help with this because Wes said a lot. There's a lot said there, right? Mm-hmm. But what he said also said words like believe and hope and patience and grace, which aren't the reality in the corporate America that I work in today. Not yesterday, not the future that we're trying to build, not all of this nostalgically embracing, we want kumbaya things to be better. But in my corporate America that I work in today, where I have 1,000 attorneys at my law firm, 15 of which are African American. Out of 1,000, these are lawyers. Everyone says, oh, there's lawyers, you guys are a dime a dozen. But not in my corporate America, not in big law.
Why would you work there?
Because I love it. Because I make a difference from within. But I want to get to that, Victor.
Yeah.
I love where I am. I'm encouraging everyone to come in. Every time I get, go ahead, Carlos.
Well, I know you want to go to Victor, and I think what we're wrestling with here, and I think it's a legitimate discussion, right? And we have this in our households, at our dinner tables. There is this debate about the deconstruction of the American capitalistic system.
Exactly.
Versus how do we position ourselves to accelerate, thrive, and take advantage of it. And we might differ on whether or not the system should be deconstructed, or whether it ever could be equitable or fair, or whether we think we can change and manipulate it from within. And that's a fair discussion. I think where I am, and this is just coming out of my background as a, I didn't really talk about my biography, but born to a single mother at age 19, 4-room house, no running water, down in Long Ridge, Virginia, home led by matriarchs, 9 people in a 4-room house with no running water. And this was not 1950, 1920, this was 1974. I remember when the bathroom was installed in 1982. I remember the stories about how the family, because they could not get capital or loan, or because contractors would take the dollars that they had saved and had been stolen, over time and time again, we were not able to improve the situation. I remember sitting in the back of the classroom when the teacher asked for book fees, and I couldn't go up because I didn't have it. I had to wait for payday. I remember the pink and yellow lunch cards. And what I resolved at that point was I was going to understand how to infiltrate that system and manage it so that no one that I knew, saw, or had any engagement with would ever experience that again. So I sat at that table with my big mama and Miss Kazan as they snapped beans, and I watched Perry Mason, and I said, gosh, this guy seems to figure out how to change things. He can take someone who seems defeated and where all hope is lost, and somehow he helps them retain their freedom or restore their prosperity. And I said, that's what I want to be. So my mentality based upon that experience was, you get in that system and you figure out how to be the Matlock, the Perry Mason,
dismantle
the person
from within.
That can dismantle that system and can bring justice to those who have no voice, not later, right, but now.
But Victor, there can't be,
right.
You have to have both, right? You have to have those of us who are inside the system,
Yes.
dismantling,
Yes.
and those who are outside of the system pushing for that dismantlement, and behind the scenes we're all working together. But when we're fighting about it,
Right.
you guys are the sellouts. You're not doing enough. You're not pushing. You're not doing this. We're not going to conform. We're not going to do this. Then none of us win, right, Victor? And I know we only have a couple minutes and we have some questions here, but.
No, I totally agree. And gosh, you just described my upbringing as well. 1974 was when we had indoor plumbing installed in our home with 5 kids and 2 parents. And I knew I didn't want, and my parents didn't their children to have to live that tough of a lifestyle going forward. And they knew too that education was the passport out of the poverty. And again, I will not apologize for sounding like a commercial for Bank of America, Jimmy, because I've been there nearly 40 years and I have seen this company transform and grow, evolve. And Wes, it's on a trajectory to be that capitalist company that you envision that African Americans can own. And what makes me so proud to work for this company that just got this Just award is the fact that we know we have to be that, to have customers and employees who are headed in that direction.
All right, Victor, we have a couple questions.
And so we have courageous conversations. We ask people to bring their best selves to work, and not feel like they have to leave part of them, who they are, at the door. And we all bring that together to build a mosaic of incredible people focused on delivering for our clients, our community, and for each other. And so I'd like to say we are the model of what that is. We're not perfect, I recognize that, but I wouldn't be there this long if I didn't think I was working for some company.
Young lady,
that
I'm
was
going
doing
to
that.
get your question. Carlos, to your point, 1996, my first summer of law school, every dime that I made, I installed that first bathroom in Big Mama's house in Talladega, Alabama. Nobody else did.
Right.
I installed it after generations of generations. She didn't have a bathroom inside until 1996. And I paid for it.
And I think
From
I
Big
know
Farm.
we're going to go to the question, but I think what we're identifying very clearly here is there's the idea, right? There's the idea, and there's the philosophy, and that I think we all agree that America can be better, that our people can be treated better, and should have rights and opportunities unrestricted. But there also is the battlefield, the tactical battlefield today. And what I take the greatest pride in is when we have our Dominion ERG team here. I was the initial founder of the ERG at Dominion. It took leaders like Ed Bain, myself, Marnika, Charlene, Drexel Harris to be in a position where we could create the space for them to be here today. And that's progress. But anyway.
Can you come to us after? I'm out of time. I've been told I got to go. Thank you, guys. This is, please give it up for this panel one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you to our guests, Jimmy Robinson Jr., Carlos Brown, Dr. Wes Bellamy, and Victor Branch. And special thanks to JMI and the Big Dipper Innovation Summit partners for convening this vital discussion. Want to know more about the Big Dipper Innovation? Stay connected with us and join our digital community of innovators at BigDipperSummit.com.